Ciao and
welcome
welcome
back
back to
to
the
our
iMovie
podcast.
podcast, in which this week we are back with another episode of the 250 Letterboxd journal, I guess,
Yeah,
in which we go through each of the films in the top 250 on Letterboxd,
which
and
now became 500.
which
but again,
sadly is 500, but we're sticking to the 250,
Yeah.
and this film is in the top 250. It's placed 179 as we speak. It's rated 4.3, and it is, as you can probably figure out by now, Secrets and Lies by Mike Leigh.
Woohoo!
So,
Not the happiest, actually. So this
I
cheerful.
don't know, it's not that. I mean,
No, it's a
there's
tragic
worse.
comedy,
There's
I'd say.
definitely worse.
So
yes.
the comedy is very much there too.
Um,
It opens actually like that, with the shooting of
with photography.
of
Yeah.
Maurice. But let's enter the plot first, I would say.
So we'll go through quickly the plot in case you haven't seen it without any spoilers, and then we'll play a little clip. Secrets and Lies tells the story of a working class British family, namely of Maurice and Cynthia, who are brother and sister, played by Timothy Spall and Brenda Blethyn. And they have, specifically Cynthia, has a kind of drama because she has one daughter, but she gave away a daughter at birth, a black daughter whose name was Hortense, who now lives with another family and has her own life and is looking for her mother. And that's kind of the setup, as the title suggests. A lot of the characters in this drama have got secrets and are lying to each other. It's got like the theatrical vibe because it's a small cast of characters, and it's mostly set. There's with just a couple of characters in the same scene. It's mostly long dialogue sequences. I mean, it could really work as a stage adaptation. To
I
be
agree.
honest,
It's true.
it feels like. I mean, maybe there has been a stage adaptation. If there has, it will appear on screen now. Here's a clip.
Let's sort your tie out for you, if I may. Looks just a little bit skewy.
whip again.
It is, that's lovely. Can I have the paper out?
Yeah.
Lovely,
Okay.
cheers.
As soon as you like.
Two ladies look gorgeous, that's smashing. That's your hands together as they are. Really nice. Okay, here we go. Put your paper down there. Right, and here we go. Okay, and...
Can we say cheese, Morris?
Well, you can if you like. But you can say cheese, you can say whatever you like, but just give me a little bit of stamping. Oh, yeah, very sweet. Okay, that's lovely. So it took you 15 years, yeah?
Yes.
They give you a prize?
No.
Not even a stethoscope or something? Lovely.
Okay, so was it your first time seeing Secrets and Lies?
It was. Was it yours?
It was.
Yoo.
What did you think of it?
Allora, it reminded me a lot of Ken Loach, of course.
Okay.
Because I think like the way to deal with these topics and in general with social, because the good thing of this film, I think, is it's not only the story of this family, and especially I'd say mostly actually of Hortense looking for her biological mother, but it's also a way for Mike Leigh to express his opinions or write some social criticisms or some discussion on certain topics. So I think in that sense it reminded me of that, because also it works with subtleties often, or delicacy and vulnerability, which are characteristics that I very much like. And overall I liked it, I have to say. I gave 4.5. At first maybe 4, but because I thought about a potential issue that I think we will break down after. Although actually, I mean, it's just an issue potential. It's not even like necessarily that. And it's the rest is brilliant, brilliantly made. Like acting is great. As also we found out that Brenda Blethyn, so Cynthia, won the Best Actress prize at Cannes, and in general, like, it's super well made, funny, witty, but also with very British humor, which you might like, you might not, I don't know. I'm starting to appreciate it more and more, I guess. I'm forced to, maybe. And no, I'm joking. And so that, and with the also seriousness of dealing with topics such as adoption, social class, and privileges, education, and the complexity. I think the complexity of the characters, especially of Cynthia, is very much there, and that's something that, of course, makes you appreciate a piece of art.
I think it's firstly. I think I wanted to fit it into I think his historical and cultural context of Britain, because I think
So,
in the late this film came out in 1996, and I think if we look at Britain in 1996, it was a time of a shift from kind of traditional and conservative reign of Thatcher and then John Major, who had been in power for between them nearly 20 years at that point, and it was just before, but already starting. I mean, Tony Blair, who's kind of New Labour and Cool Britannia, and kind of a revolution and a cultural revolution in Britain, with which was attached to the Spice Girls and to David Beckham, and to this new image of Britain as
Of course.
something cool, and of working class Britain as something a Train Spotting, for example, of more aestheticized maybe. And I think so 97 was when Blair came into power, but by 96 he was already looking like he was going to come into power. So I think when I watch Secret and Lies, I'm very much already thinking of that era of Britain, which I think, I mean, I wasn't around back then, but I think mostly people describe as an era of hope that was later crushed, because Tony Blair turned out to be, in many ways, very similar to the people who came before him, his predecessors. And he got involved in Iraq and many other things, and in fact, mostly his economic policies were quite similar to the Thatcher and John Major, but there was a feeling in the late 90s of escaping from this kind of social conservatism that was kind of Britain, specifically older generations of Britain, and I think films like Secrets and Lies are very representative of that, because they go. I mean, there's a lot of taboos in the film that British cultural taboos, like I think the character of Hortense and the story about the kind of mixed race children being put up for adoption because of social issues. And
in fact, I watched like a piece of an interview by Vogue to Mike Leigh, and he said like that he was inspired for the theme in general to his family, because part of his family were adopted babies or children, and he said that he noticed that during his research he found out that in the 60s a lot of working class white young women were adopting or getting rid, not adopting, giving into adoption and getting rid of mixed race babies. So that's really, I think you're right, like recurring topic,
and definitely not something about which many films have been made, so it's interesting to see it. And I think, as you said, the characters are very well written, specifically Cynthia, I think, because I think we'll talk about it later, but it's she's exceptional, she's really good, and it's and you kind of feel it. It feels like someone you know. I think, especially for me, I grew up around half of my family was British, and you grow up around a lot of people like her who you can kind of I can see like growing, because she wants the best somehow. Of course, she has many flaws, and even the way she raises her daughters isn't the best, and the way she kind of interacts with people isn't always the best, but she does have a kind heart and she wants the best for people, and you can kind of see throughout the film the way in which she interacts with Hortense, who she discovers to be her daughter, is very touching and increasingly kind of heartfelt, which
it's true.
Is very, I really think was very effectively done.
And I think it's not just specifically representative maybe of some British or English even type of person, but I think it's quite, I wouldn't say maybe universal, because I don't dare say that, but I can also see I know many people like her, of course, like with the right cultural adaptation, but I know some people who are like her exactly. So it's like she's a stereotypical, if you want, in a certain way, portinaia. Portinaia is, I don't know how to translate it in English, but it's the person who controls the entrance of a building, maybe a building of houses.
Like receptionist.
We could say receptionist, but I don't know if that's the same in English.
Okay.
But the stereotype is that the figure of the portinaio is the one who wants to know everything about everyone, and she knows everything about everyone because, of course, of her central figure, like geographically speaking, let's say, physically speaking, but with a bit of an innocence and a naivety on one side, and on the other side maybe without the right tools to have a proper judgment, or without judging, or more an understanding. So that's a bit also how I can see things.
Yeah,
If
that's probably accurate. And I think
I guess
the
so.
film, because it has also a kind of side characters, it has Roxanne, who's Cynthia's other daughter, who she raised, and it has
Right.
Monica, who's Maurice's wife, who also has some secrets and lies of her own, and the way in which these characters play off each other and the class dynamics of these characters kind of engage is also very interesting and very well done. I think it's in general it's a very well written film, simple as we said, well staged, but very very well written, very on point and precise with what it wants to do. And it even has a couple of other really interesting scenes. For example, with Leslie Manville, when Hortense goes to this registry to kind of discover
Towards the beginning.
yes, towards the beginning,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure,
And it has Leslie Manville, who's a famous British actress, playing the kind of, I guess,
the social worker.
yeah, who's going to help her.
Who was supposed to help her.
And that's a very
Yeah, because
interesting
that scene, I think, at the beginning, of course, you hate the social worker because she's very not caring at all. Although, as the scene goes on, I have the feeling like that she actually could be one of the social workers who cares the most about her patients. I don't know, her customer. I don't know how to call them. The people that she has to take care of.
Right, Hortense. Let's talk a little bit about you, shall we? Now, obviously, you've been giving a great deal of thought to things and you've come to a decision which is good. But for me, the question is, why now?
I just feel that it's the right time, that's all.
Right. You thinking about getting married?
No.
Do you have children?
No.
You thinking about having children?
No.
It's fair enough.
You can see like also that she has some theory tools that she doesn't always know how to put into practice. But she tries to give her some suggestion and to prepare her for the shock. And she said, okay, it's possible that your mom doesn't want to meet you. She doesn't want to know anything about you. You will suffer, most likely. It's intense. So she's also trying to give Hortense the right tools at the same time. And as at the beginning of the scene, maybe she's like counting the time to go into the break and, finish her job. Towards the end, she shows a little bit of care. So I think also there is quite of a social criticism already, which I really like, because it's in these little details and these little scenes that sometimes they seem like put randomly in the film, like the one of the shooting when Maurice is shooting at a woman with big scar on her face. Scar on her face. And they have this little scene together, and it's like another topic thrown there.
Yeah, and I think similar to that, close to that scene where Maurice's old, not boss, but the person who used to own the photography place comes back and asks him for a job, which is another interesting scene.
And it's there, I mean, left there. We don't know anything about it anymore.
No, but I think it's well made. Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's very interesting.
Absolutely.
Have you seen any other films by Mike Leigh? I was wondering.
I don't think I have.
I want to check what else he's made.
And there is maybe I can try to put it in the cards. And there is a nice interview by Vogue to him where he breaks down very briefly all his films. So that's very cool. And there is where I found out about the research for adoption, why he wanted to deal with this topic, let's say. And,
I have seen 3 of his films, apparently. So I've seen 3 Mike Leigh films. I'm trying to figure out which ones they are. I know Mr. Turner's one of them. So Mike Leigh also made Naked, starring David Thewlis, which I haven't seen. But some other films of his I have seen are Abigail's Party, which is one of his early films, I think from the 1970s, which is also very staged. I think it all happens in one night in one room, more or less, and it's again a kind of a similar kind of cast of characters, I guess, to Secrets and Lies, and Mr. Turner, which is a historical piece about the painter Turner, who's played by Timothy Spall, who of course also appears in Secrets and Lies, and that's also a nice film. It's an interesting biopic.
For those who, like me, are not super familiar with many British actors, Maurice, played by Timothy Spall, is also most commonly known as Peter Pettigrew in Harry Potter.
Yeah, but I mean for an
For those
international
like me.
audience, probably. But it's true that a lot of the
He
Harry
played
Potter,
so many things.
a lot of the Harry Potter actors have been very successful in UK, but have probably got a more known abroad. Like, for example, Michael Gambon, Jim Broadbent, Maggie Smith.
But to be honest, even like Alan Rickman.
Yeah, Alan Rickman. They've all, I think, internationally most famous for Harry Potter. Even Gary Oldman, maybe, but maybe not at this point.
For me, yes.
But also he's in The Dark Knight. So it's true that it's that's if for a lot of British actors that was a claim to international fame that they wouldn't necessarily have had otherwise.
Everybody in the family has like in this film has like their secrets, their lies, blah blah. And I thought about the topic of judgment, also raised before, because it's so much that because everybody's judging each other based on what they think they know or they want to know or based on the status, and they're all afraid of judgment, maybe besides Cynthia in a certain way, although she's very, I mean, she wants to behave in a certain way according to the role that she's supposed to have in her environment. But even like, for example, Monica, she is trying to have the best house ever, because that's the impression that she wants to give to people, that she's one person who cares about certain standards and she's, upper class compared to most people. Also to cover some issues, some difficulties that she will then raise after. But all these judgments are so strong and so they go rotten, if that makes sense. And they are really like destroying every person singularly and then the community, as then it will be pointed out in the end by Maurice. And this is, I think, in contrast with Hortense, who would be the one who probably is the most entitled to judge, because you abandoned me, you, my biological mother. And actually she's the one who doesn't, because she tries to get in contact with her biological mother, with Cynthia. She didn't manage so greatly at the beginning. She managed at the end, and she had all the possibilities to judge also, because Hortense is a very high educated person. She has many, I think, emotional tools, psychologically speaking, compared to the others. But also, like, on an educational level, she knows proper English, she knows how to behave in certain contexts, she knows about different cultures. Like, it's, I think, quite iconic, the scene where she suggests Cynthia to go to eat to an Italian place, and Cynthia, like, compares Italian to kebab and to I don't remember what, and was, like, mixing everything, because that's her reality. Like, what she finds in London, that's, maybe, I don't know, London cuisine, I guess, without discerning the different origins and roots and, the complexity maybe of certain realities. So in a certain way, I think Hortense could be the one who could judge on paper, and she's the only one who really doesn't do that, maybe together with Maurice, I think. I don't know, I think that's a topic that Mike Leigh raised, although it's not maybe explicitly said. It makes you reflect upon how you behave around different people and how there is this moral superiority often that it's better to leave out, because you're missing so much without looking at the person and their path in general and their complexity.
No, I think that's true. I think Hortense still probably is judging somehow. I mean, she's reacting to Cynthia's existence, and sometimes it's not even words, it's more expressions she makes, and you can see that it's not the easiest thing for her. I think what is missing after some point of the film is more of Hortense on her own or with her friends, because there's one scene at the beginning where you see Hortense in her normal life with one of her friends, and they're kind of discussing normal
True.
things, and then after a while it kind of switches exclusively to Cynthia and Maurice's kind of POV and their take on it without Hortense rather than vice versa. So that's maybe that not being included is the reason we don't get so much judgment from Hortense, is simply because she's not given the space to judge in some sense. But you mentioning that scene in the Italian restaurant made me think of the scene where Hortense and Cynthia meet for the first time and go to a cafe, and where you have this fantastic long shot, which is done in one. I mean, it's one take. It's very difficult, and these two actresses are kind of playing mother and daughter reuniting, which is just a fantastic scene. Really stands out.
See.
There's 2 or 3 scenes in the film that are long shots of kind of groups of tense group settings, and all of them are very impressive. They're very naturalistic, again, very precise, and they're extremely well made, I think.
It's true. And that scene, I because through that interview that I mentioned 300 times at this point, Mike Leigh is also saying that they improvised in the pre-recording, let's say, pre-production. They improvised a lot of scenes, one of which is this one, so that they could together build it, and let's see like which sentiments they could bring into the scene without a strong, like, rigid script. So that's, I think, also one of the reasons why that scene is incredible. To reply to that, yeah, but I don't think, I mean, of course, to go back to the Judgment, I don't think, of course, you have your own opinion, and so you're somehow judged because, I mean, you live in life, of course, you react and everything. But what she doesn't do is she's not like judging in a way, she's not showing you that she knows more, Hortense, or that she could do more, or that maybe you don't have enough tools to have, I don't know, conversations of many different topics.
But also
she has.
She's in a difficult situation because she stands out amongst Cynthia's family, not just by her race, by being black, but also by her class, because she's been educated. She's gone to university, which probably none of them have, and she has
Of course,
scientific
exactly.
education. Maybe the brother does, but even then it's unlikely. I don't know. It's possible, but unlikely.
And he showed quite of an emotional
And he also has
intelligence.
quite a posh house, which is interesting. Like much posher than his sisters. But those things are all interesting, and I think so. For example, she's an outsider on 2 fronts in that sense, so it's difficult for her to fit in for different reasons. Although she still manages to in the end, or somehow, like she.
Yeah, but like often a way to escape is when you can't fit in. Is then you get out and you judge from your moral superiority that scene. She doesn't do that. Or at least we don't see that, but I don't really think that she does, as she wasn't doing it before in the
No, because it's a very delicate emotional situation for her as well. It's not something to be taken lightly.
No, okay, but you can react in different ways, I think, and one of them could be like, okay, take distance, I don't like that, and therefore I don't. But she puts herself in a non-judgmental situation because she knows that also she looked for that, and anything could have happened, and every situation could have come out. Mike Leigh also said that one of the first times, no, the first time I think that they recorded, I guess, the cafe scene, but I don't know exactly. But in any case, at the beginning, Brenda Blythin, didn't know that her daughter, I mean her adopted, daughter given in adoption, was supposed to be black. So when she found out that it was black, that also, I think, is a reaction that they explored somehow based on her real expressions. So that's also very nice. And, care for details and stuff. Yeah. Which is appreciated.
And it seems like based on this film, it seems like Mike Leigh's one of those directors who really brings the most out of actors and gives them a chance to shine, because there's some great performances in this film, and
because also he works with them,
and they're also given real time and space to try things, I think, and because it's a very good script, and I guess also with some elements of improvisation and trying different things. Earlier you said you had an issue. What was your issue?
Allora, the issue is a potential issue because I don't know. Allora, we entered the spoiler part. Not that, I mean, I don't know what is actually spoiler, because spoiler could have been that Cynthia was the mother, but not even. But in any case, towards the end, when Cynthia decides to horribly tell the truth in a horrible moment about everything, and so she says that actually she's not my co-worker, Hortense is not my co-worker, but she's my daughter, she's your half-sister, Roxanne, blah blah blah. Allora, Roxanne goes away, she runs away. Fortunately, Maurice, that we said he has quite of an emotional intelligence, he goes to her, speak to her and said, please come back and at least listen to your mother. And this is another, I think, contrast with Hortense, who is struggling a lot also to listen, but she's always listening, but also it's her choice. And then she goes back, and at some point in a moment of vulnerability, Cynthia, who is at the moment she's consoling Monica after having revealed the fact that she can't have children. And she started being emotional, and she started to talk about the father of Roxanne, who she doesn't know. He said, yeah, he was a good man, he was an American, blah, 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 blah. And then at the point, of course, Hortense says, what about my dad? Was he a nice guy? Using the same words that Cynthia used. And she replied, I wrote it down, oh, don't break my heart, darling. Implying that, of course, he was not a nice guy, he was a bad guy. And I don't know actually if that's my interpretation, but for me, she was raped. And I thought, am I looking too much for, because of course, like I think in this last year, everybody's trying to be, everybody, I don't know. Many people are trying to deconstruct themselves, and me too, in my naturally racist culture education, in any case. And I thought, am I looking too much for something that is a problem that is not there, or is it actually an issue that the only black man that is on screen is a rapist? I don't know.
Not even on screen, actually.
Exactly, not even on screen, and we don't know anything. And somehow it also confirms the stereotype of the black immigrant is a rapist, compared especially to the lovely American who, although he abandoned her with her daughter, he was nice to her and everything. So I think a bit maybe reflects the racism that is within Cynthia on one side, probably, although if she was raped, she was raped. So we don't even know anything about the rape scene, how it happened, if he was someone close to her or not. I don't know. I wonder if that's good representation or not, or it also happens that, of course, also black men as men, they rape. That's not put into question. So I don't know if that's my issue or a potential not huge issue of the film, I guess. I don't know if you reflected on that.
I mean, I think it's interesting because, as you say, probably I agree that if this film was made today, they probably wouldn't have done that. And I think they would have given Hortense more of more space. Because I think in some sense she's a bit idealized and simplified, because I think probably the writers wanted to show her in a very positive light, which was good, but also perhaps simplified her character a bit. And as we said before, there's only that one scene where she has with her friend, which really goes into her characters, whereas the other characters have all got countless scenes of... The other characters all have their flaws and their weaknesses, whereas Hortense is a bit the perfect person who's always patient and kind. And I think that even that in itself can be problematic, actually. I saw a review by someone saying that. And yes, I think also it's... not only because, as you say, like, rapes can happen, whatever. But I think it's more the fact, actually, that Hortense's story doesn't really close, in that she doesn't have the closure of knowing the identity of her parents, and that's never sought after by the film. The film gives somehow emotional closure to a lot of other characters, whether it's Cynthia or Maurice or Monica or Roxanne, but with Hortense that is kind of passed over, and she ends the film supposedly happy without ever having discovered the identity of her dad. Or, she's discovered some things, but that's never necessarily focused on. And also because Hortense is black, and she's clearly passes for black, therefore she would perhaps feel somehow closer in some way to her
Sure.
father, who would have been black, rather than her white mother. And the film doesn't really want to explore that theme, which is understandable because like, it explores a lot of other themes, and it's also made by white people, so
Yeah, exactly.
it's difficult, I think, to write unless you really know
Or you ask someone.
those situations.
black.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't remember. Was there at the beginning like a funeral scene of the mother? No.
Maybe.
I mean the non-biological, because I don't
Maybe the
remember
very first scene, I think.
the
yeah.
non-biological mother, was she black?
Yes, I think both the parents were.
Okay.
Because her siblings
So that's
are.
good at least, because
Mm.
yeah, I don't really remember that in this moment.
But I think you only see it very quickly.
No, exactly, because I thought also, yeah, there could be a different attachment to the biological father in the sense of maybe culturally speaking, as in how you are perceived by your surroundings, or maybe the roots,
Yes.
if you want to know. But I think in a certain way the closure is actually more connected to the fact that she also doesn't want to know, although that's assumption, she doesn't want to know too much about her father. I mean, what she knows now, it's fine, because she doesn't recognize him as a father nor as a man, I guess, because if you're horrible, why? She already has a father. So okay, at this point, this closed chapter, she just needed to know if he was good or not to Cynthia, I think, at this point. Although it would be nice maybe to see his version, but if he
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something's missing, probably.
I
Because
guess.
it's, I think, and also, and we have to like point out that like this film was made 30 years ago, and that films
really?
made in the 90s obviously can be held to different standards than films made today, because this is definitely an anti-racist film in the scope of white
Certo.
working class British history,
Yeah.
that preaches inclusivity and diversity, I guess. Not diversity, but it's a film that really tries to break down boundaries between race. Does it do so by today's standards? Yes, with some limits. Does it do so by the 90s standards? Very
Yeah.
much so. So I think that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I agree. No, that was useful.
Is this film for a white audience? I think also yes.
I agree.
And that's fine. I think some films, like, as long it's not like Intouchable or something, as long as it's done with good intentions and shows its non-white characters, it makes an effort to show them as three-dimensional and in
Yeah,
a
definitely.
respectful
Yeah,
and
yeah,
positive
yeah. I
way,
agree.
without, but without being too simple. Then
See.
it's I think it's
And also,
it's a
she's out of the
positive.
stereotypes.
But I don't think it's necessarily a film for a black British audience. But
also
you
because
can't
maybe
knock a film for what it's not, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no. But I think it's also maybe aimed for people, I don't know if like Cynthia, but maybe more like Monica, who have their own hypocrisies and their very narrow-minded views. And this film is somehow trying to say, look, this is you, look what you're missing, look what you're doing, look what contorts and disastrous mechanisms are you contributing.
Yeah. But also, most of the actors and the director of this film were probably born in the 50s, so that's another thing to bear
He was
in
born
mind.
maybe in 56, if I'm not wrong. Maybe no.
So there you go.
Since some time ago we said in a video, yes, so now we will have a segment with the reviews, blah blah. I went through some reviews. None was particularly, I think, worth to be mentioned here, but one, yes, which is by 3 on a Match on Letterboxd, of course. And I will read just the first part. At the beginning of it, this person says that they watched for the first time this film at 38 instead of when they were in college and first starting to get into film. And then they go on. I don't think I would have appreciated it at the time. Now that I've accumulated some life experience, I recognize these flawed characters and their dynamics. Now, Timothy Spall is reliable as always, but Brenda Blethyn steals the show as Cynthia, a character who is endearing and off-putting in equal measure, alternatively or even simultaneously, I agree, pathetic, judgmental, vulnerable, immature, and funny. And it's so true, that's 100% her, I think. Sometimes she acts so selfishly you want to slap her, yes. But every moment rings authentic. You tolerate and forgive her as the characters tolerate and forgive her. And I think, I think it's a beautiful way to put her character into words, to write her character. So yeah, that was worth mentioning, I think. And yes, also it also sheds a light on the comedy part of the film, which is very much there.
Yeah, as the review says correctly, there's some points of the film where I couldn't stand her. I found her very annoying, and then by a few scenes later, the film manages to turn you around and make you really appreciate her. And I think that's not an easy thing to do, and that's very skillfully done. And
I agree. Because her complexity is given to the viewer.
Yes.
Completely. So I think that's when you know like the complexity of a person, it's hard for you to not feel a bit of attachment or to detach completely from her. So yeah, and it's true. Like for example, when at the birthday of Roxanne, because actually that's like the spotlight of Roxanne, and she ruins everything by saying, without talking to Hortense about it, but she starts saying like make the outing for Hortense. And I remember, I think I I physically said like, no, what are you doing? That's not the context. And on a human level, please don't do that. I wanted to ask you, would you put it in the top 250 best films and in your top 250?
Yes. I think so. I mean, again, as we always say, like, I haven't seen every film ever made, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to say, but yes, I really like this film. It was extremely well made, brilliantly acted. It drags you in. It touches you in many different ways. So yeah, not really anything bad to say about it. And glad that it's in the top 250, and it could even be a bit higher than where it is, I think, actually.
We remind you it's 179 in the moment we're recording.
What do you think?
It was, I think, 177 just after, like 1 week ago or something, because I was preparing already the thumbnail and I wrote 177. What do I think? I think absolutely top 250 is well deserved. Also for me could be maybe in the top 150 is in here, even top 100 potentially.
You're already preparing for our next tier list, would you?
Yeah, I guess so. And my mind goes there unconsciously. And it's definitely also my top 250, and also there could be my top 100, 150. If you watch this film, please give us your opinion, or if you notice something, or if you had some different feelings upon some characters or some dynamics, because I think it's the most interesting part is to discuss, the social dynamic, and we highly recommend you to watch it. It's on movie in some countries.
Yes.
So
yeah.
That's a possibility.
So, like, subscribe, and we will see you next week with another video.
It's true.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Secret's alive. We're all in pain. Why can't we share our pain?